Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me on the channel, and I just want to remind you that I'm going to be doing on this next couple of videos a series on these little cards. And what they are is an exploration on texture. The reason why I wanted to do it was because a lot of you might be going through a little moment of maybe painter's block, or a struggle, or something that might be blocking you in some way. And I wanted to show you a little exercise that I learned to do a long time ago that I do still do. And what it is I cut these little 3x5 watercolor scraps just out of like maybe old paintings that I just didn't want to continue with, or that I just wasn't keeping, that I did a demo or something on. And I save them. And the reason why is because I create these little cards when I get new colors to play with, or I want to try a new texture, or maybe just come up with a neat idea for something. And this is the start of things like these, and also things like these. In fact, I started a whole course called Watercolor Sketchbook for Beginners. And last year I released it. I'll link it below. And it basically takes you from start to finish in your sketchbook, teaching you about watercolor and shapes and dealing with granulation and just creating all kinds of interesting little exercises that you can do to become better at watercolor if you're just taking it for the first time, or if you need a refresher and you haven't been back to it for a long time. A lot of the exercises are so fun. You can do them with your kids, but I was trying to think of something I could do on this channel that might be a refresher for you when you're feeling a little low, a little like, I don't know what to paint, but you just want to paint. You want to just have some moments of mindfulness. So I thought these cards would be great for that. And not only that, but you're learning about your colors. You're experimenting with textures, and you're finding out what it is that you can do and you like to do. So let's take a look at a couple of the previous ones, and we're going to do some of these together. So this one is a Roman Schmal little exercise I did on just blending colors very, very carefully, very softly on paper with one of my brushes. So this would just be done with a lot of water and literally practicing doing these branch-like strokes and combining the colors together. We can do something similar to that very, very easily on the channel. Just ask me and I will do it for you. This one is an ultramarine and a magenta granulation exercise by adding salt. So I added salt to it just to get some neat little effects and see how the colors melted together. So down here I have a yellow with the ultramarine, and up here I have the magenta with the ultramarine. So this is a great way just to test out your colors and see what they can do, see how the granulation goes. If you're using different kinds of watercolor, maybe do some wet on dry and then do some wet on wet, and see how they blend together just automatically, painting themselves. And then add some table salt or some sea salt or some things just to see what happens to them when they dry. And then you can mark them and make notes, and literally you would have that little card to refer back to later. This one was a Roman Schmal lavender. I wanted to test the color and just see if I could draw a really easy rose. And then I was dry brushing in some Hooker's green to see what that looked like in combination with it as a study for something else that I was going to do in a lesson. I also tried a cat's tongue to make the shape of the leaves just to see if it would make some great shapes. So that's another thing you can do, is test out your brushes on these and make notes. Then, like when you're all done, I just have a clip, but if you don't want to just get a clip, I got this at, I picked these up at like office stores, or like Winners, or, any of those home goods stores. But you can also poke a hole into it and tie a ribbon to get all these onto one thing, or just get like a clamp or a circle or anything that will just keep them together. You can put them in blocks of, blocks of stacks based on the watercolor or based on the kind of technique, anything you want. But these will really inspire you later. So the whole point of the exercise is not only just to do them, but so that you'll learn, but also to remember what you did. So like whether you're going to write the notes on the front or the back, or use the back additionally, because this is really 100% watercolor paper, so I can use both sides. But it tells me what I did, and it reminds me of an exercise and a color. And I think that is really inspiring. And even if you're just doing your cards this weekend, that's painting. You're learning, you're growing, and you're getting better. And that's a whole point of doing this, So now, whether you do it in your sketchbook or you just do these cute little cards because you have a lot of extra paper, now it's time to just relax and find a way to use watercolor to decompress. So there's no excuses. If your sketchbook is intimidating you, if that new pad of paper is intimidating you, then you can go back to your cards. You can lift ideas from them, or you can simply just make some new ones. So let's go ahead and make one, shall we? Or a couple with some ideas, so that maybe if we paint this together, we will be able to come up with some fun stuff. So one of the exercises in my watercolor floral for beginners class is called a splash flower, and I really like doing them. They're so much fun. So you can just do one where we're striking the paper with just some water. Take some of your favorite colors, like, let's see, I have so many on my desk here. I'm just going to take some of this beautiful pink because it's right here. It's already done. And we're just going to kind of splash it in. And these are so fun to do. You can flick it, you can use a toothbrush, but what I would do is either before or after this dries, when you decide to label it, be sure to label the brush that you used, the color you used, and just some description on what you used, because it really does help for these to stay really organized. And if you do them as you go along, you'll really love it, So I'm trying to think of what color I want to mix with this. So that was a mixture of kind of like my own Potter's pink in a way. This was, if I remember, it was Rondite Genuine and a little bit of like Imperial Purple or Manganese Violet, I believe it was. Yep, it was. It was Manganese Violet, which I just grabbed a little bit more of now. And I'm going to just kind of encourage that in because it's got some really beautiful granulation. And I just want to see what it looks like. And this is not only like, it doesn't have to work out, right? This is mainly just to see what the color does. So I'm going to start labeling here while I'm waiting for this to dry. So this is Manganese Violet. And Rondite or Rhodonite, I think it is, Rhodonite. You could also use Quin Rose mixed with Manganese Violet. That would give you like that beautiful kind of tone. Quin Rose is also a great one. But the texture to get the granulation is the Manganese Violet. Imperial Purple would also work in this. This would be pretty. So that's just like a little splash flower, and you can see we're getting some really, really cool texture. So let's, along with the granulation, add a little bit of salt to part of this since it's starting to dry. And I'm just going to add it to the outside, to these areas here. And I'm kind of thinking to myself right now that, put my salt there. I could possibly, it might be a little light, but you know what? This is a great experiment. If you put salt on lighter areas, right? what happens? Do you have to have salt on darker areas, or can you put it on lighter areas? And then we know this is granulation. And then let's just, while we're waiting for this one, we'll put in a little bit of, wash my brush off. I hate leaving these in the water because they're so long. I wanted to play around with leaves, but do it like maybe with this, but this is so big for that little area. How about something like this? Nope, too small for that area. It's way too big. We need something kind of fun and different. I know what we'll use. We'll use this. This is small and should do a decent size leaf. So I'm mixing a little bit of my Schmincke Viridian, and I'm gonna just come off here and then probably start like this. Great. Oh, that worked. Yeah, and it just kind of gives me a little practice on my leaves. Then I think I'm just going to take some, maybe we'll pull it out with a different brush, like something that is got a nice point to it. And I don't know, I've been doing this lately, just kind of playing with striking through things just to get just a little more movement and texture. And I kind of really like it. I'll show you one I did just recently. Yeah, it kind of just gives me a little more movement. So I did this one the other day, and as you can see, I practiced. This is like a larger piece that could come off of one of these, right? So once you do something like this and you test out your colors, then you kind of get ideas and you just keep going from there, but you don't have to start off real big. So this was a Hansa yellow mixed with an ultramarine, and it made all of these greens. So it was really an exercise, and also an azo yellow mixed with ultra. It was an exercise in just developing greens and just kind of practicing going from yellow to green to blue and back again. And what it did is it just, you know, and I used a little umber sienna, and the exercise just kind of, you know, it didn't matter to me. I was going to cut it up if it didn't work out, but I wanted to try and experiment with different brushes and pulling these things out, and I ended up with something kind of interesting looking. I don't know that I would hang it, but it was a great exercise and such a great learning experience about the colors that I was working with and the combinations. And yeah, and I thought maybe this might be one, you know, I would eventually teach. Not sure. But also more ideas that I just recently did on another video are flowers. So literally you can take any one of these flowers and develop them through these cards. So very, very easy exercises to do and great experiments. So let's set this one aside. We're going to do another one. So another one we can do is something maybe like this branch. And what I would do is, this is a Perla Escoda. So this one has a point. So on this side, we're going to do Perla Escoda size 8. And on this side, we're going to do the Versatile size 4. Okay. And we're going to do something like this, just kind of going through with very light washes of our colors and letting them mix on paper. So this is in mixing on paper, you always start with like a yellow and either a red or a blue. If you're starting with any kind of a yellow, it's going to make green as it mixes with blue. So I'm going to kind of just go through here with a nice wet brush and grab some different colors. And just kind of let them start playing together. And then by the end, we'll have a nice experiment using different colors from our palette, right? Let them cross, let them mix, but I'm also at the same time getting to know how to use this brush. And it's just such a terrific exercise to practice making trees and branches, but also getting to know your equipment is so important because, you know, you develop like a hand style. Like right now I'm laying my pinky down to do this, and I find that, you know, that allows me to just kind of like be a little more free with it and just kind of come off the branches really easily. And I'm just dragging and doing you know, these little flick lines, just like that. And that's just me figuring out how to use this brush in the, you know, in the way I want to. And it also, you know, like I'm experimenting with color right now. You don't realize, but I'm combining colors together, and my brain's just kind of taking it in. Like I just mixed that, you know, this color in with this cobalt blue, and I'm really liking how it's mixing together. I think it's really interesting, you know? And I like some colors together, you know, like this is how you kind of see what your colors look like together. And if you like them together, you know, you got a color that you're curious about later, you might like, oh, I like these two colors together. You know, I'm going to go ahead and do that in my next painting. So that's a great way to just see colors together and get used to your colors, you know. Let's grab, and you can make a note on the back or on the front as you add colors of ones you liked, ones you didn't like. You know, you can note all the colors. This is your flashcard. So these little watercolor flashcards are going to be used by you for a long time, more than likely. So definitely do them any way that you like them. It's interesting to see, you know, how much color the different brushes need. And by doing this, I'm kind of like getting used to the strength, the size, and the flow of doing certain things. Like I noticed that this one, I can do front or back. Like I can go from up to down or from down to back up, you know, whichever I like. But it's really great to just play, you know, when you don't know what to paint, this is what you paint. You try things on these little cards. One of you guys was asking me about watercolor paper and getting a little frustrated, I think, right? Because it can be expensive, but just to give you an idea, like this pad here is 100% watercolor paper, Artistico 100% cotton. I'll link it below. For this block of Fabriano, 140 pound, 3GM, you get 20 sheets. But this sheet makes literally like 4 cards, and then you can use the back because it's 100% cotton paper. So whether you do like an exercise like this that you're going to frame later, or you just you know, kind of develop both sides. You can use both sides as paper, and that would be like 40 sheets for $19.99, you know, and that's Canadian dollars. So it's, you know, should be, you can get them on sale. Same thing as with my Arches sketchbook. I know Arches is expensive, but you get for, let's see, one pad of this paper, which was 12 sheets of 9 by 12. I actually got this entire sketchbook. So this whole sketchbook only cost me $19.99 because I got the paper when it was on sale, and I made a sketchbook out of it. And literally, what? That's 12, 24, 48 pages. 48 of these pages. So front and back, because it's 100% cotton. This is an exercise from my sketchbook class, actually. And actually, these are all exercises from my sketchbook class. That was a fun class. But 48 pages, and these are great big pages. I mean, look, even compared to this, right? Big pages. So this was only $19, and I made it for free because I just kind of glued everything together. I did signatures. I have a video on how I did it. It was just basic, but it works, and it's still going strong, you know? So it can be frustrating when you're looking at watercolor paper and you're just getting started, but there really is, it's not that hard to use really good paper. You know, you don't always have to struggle with bad paper. Now, if you found a watercolor paper you like, great. But like a lot of sketchbooks are so expensive to me. I would, you know, you can't get a 100% cotton watercolor sketchbook for $19.99. So why just not make one, you know, or get the blocks. The blocks work great. And you can cut them up later if you don't, you know, if you mess up a page, and make these little flashcards out of them. So lots and lots of ways to paint. Okay, so let's do one more, and then we'll end there. And you can tell me what you think of this video, and if you want to see me do more of these. So let's do, for our next one, a wash of colors. So that we can see how beautiful some of these colors mix together. Going off of these and looking at them mixing together, or here, you know, I think that I would love to see maybe a wash of purples and blues together. So let's think about, I'm trying to think of what color. I'm thinking phthalo turquoise. Maybe we'll do some phthalo turquoise. And I'm writing it on with a Sharpie right now because otherwise it'll just bleed if I try to write it later. Some ultramarine, or you can use cobalt blue. Ultramarine is fun though because it's granulating, so that's always a good time. And then in this corner we'll do Quin Rose. That's an easy color to do. And then maybe in this color, we'll do the manganese violet, or should we always use that one. So let's see. We've got ultramarine into turquoise, a little Quin Rose. Looking at here, I'm getting some ideas. I might actually add a little bit of, I like the Quin Rose. That's going to make a purple. You know what? We're going to leave it open. Here's how we figured this out. So I'm going to take a nice juicy brush, right? This is the VINCI COSMOTOP. And we're just going to wet our paper here. It's interesting that Sharpies actually bleed when you add water to them, because my other pens do not bleed. It's funny. Okay, let's start with the phthalo turquoise, which is such a pretty color. And we're just going to lay it right in there because I want to watch it and see how it goes, you know? Let's see what it does. Just going to go ahead and leave it there and let it work. I might have to actually tilt this or something. And then down here, we're going to take our ultramarine and we're going to drop some of this in. So I'm thinking in my mind that I want to start with like the strongest version of it in the corners and then go into lighter versions of it into the center. So to do that, I'm just dropping in the majority of it here and then rinsing the brush out. So we're going to get Quinn Rose. So get the strongest part down here. Let it just kind of meet up with this one. As there's going to be a drying shift. So, you know, I'm thinking that I want to encourage them to meet up and just see what they do with each other. But I also want to see what the dry shift is, both in when they mix together and also when they're on their own. And that teaches me a couple of things, right? It teaches me more about my colors. This is so relaxing. And literally, if you did a bunch of background tests, you could paint something over them. Like you could take, once it's dry, you can either take a very sharp brush and do a flower drawing over this. You know, you can just paint over it. There's so much you can do. Oh, this is really pretty. Trying to think of what else that I might want to add. I think I'm actually just going to keep playing with this right now. Let's just keep adding some more phthalo turquoise because I don't want that to dry without having just a really cool presence of it. So what I'm learning here is that by adding water, this is not really trying to take over as much as you would think, you know? Like if this were a core color, this would be like pushing its, I mean, like boom, it would explode. But I'm not really seeing in these colors anything really exploding. But I do love how this is washing over when the Quinn Rose washes over that ultramarine. Look at that gorgeous purple. And then if you add some more ultramarine, the ultramarine likes to bleed. It bleeds a little quicker than the other ones. This is great. It's really, really beautiful. It's so relaxing to watch this too, isn't it? So I'm just kind of letting these kind of mix together on paper. And we have a nice little light area here. And then I'm going to add some drops of water as this thing kind of dries. I mean, it's not nearly dry because I want to see what drops of water will do. I kind of really want to put something else there. So let's grab, may as well clear this out and add in a little bit of Imperial Purple. So on this one, I'm just kind of dabbing things in. You can, you know, if you struggle with the, I don't really mind if they're bendy, you know, until they dry. But if you struggle with that and you don't like that and it's irritating, you can always clamp this down or you can just tape it down to something. I'm going to add in a little bit of salt here that I saved just in different areas because I find salt textures are so fun, you know, to see. And you kind of get a feeling for, you know, how much salt to add, right? Yeah, I like that. That's really pretty. And then just leave it dry. So let's leave it dry before we go here real quick. And we'll come right back when it's a little more dry and see how they look and review our work. Okay, so coming back, the first one I think was this one that we did, right? So you can see this one had a lot more time to dry. It had about 20 minutes to dry, and we got some really great effects from the salt that I dropped in at the very last minute. This is completely dry now, so I can just scrape off the salt, and you can see where it just kind of eroded out as the salt dissolved in the water. But it did take 20 minutes to do it, and I noticed that the very last 5 minutes is when I saw the effect. So in watching it develop, it really did need that extra drying time because there wasn't really much going on, and then like 5 minutes later I saw how this completely changed. So that's interesting. I also really like the movement of doing the leaves in that color, and also some of the little, effects. And the color is really beautiful. It's like such a pretty color. So I would totally do that again. This was interesting that both of them look pretty much the same. I feel like the smaller brush was less smooth. The effects on the branches was a little more choppy, where this brush, because it had more water, what was that brush? It was this one. So this one was great and sharp, and the colors were darker, but at the same time, it was more choppy. Probably because, it's just, right, the action on it is not as smooth because it's a very, very short brush. But then the longer brush, because in order to take the action, the whole thing is going through here, and this is bending and not really snapping as much as this one is. This one snaps back. So less snap gives you more of a smoother action and actually looks more, I don't know, I like it better. I actually like the way this one turned out better. I also like the combination of colors, not having so many colors. Just to me looks more pleasing than having so many different colors going on here, but that's typical. I mean, sometimes it looks good, but I really do like that color combination. So I found a color combination that makes me kind of happy and that I would actually paint with. And then this one hasn't completely dried yet. This has been about 10 minutes. I froze the video and just kind of wanted to see the colors. The dry shift is pretty good, actually. This is very, very dark, the Quin Rose, and so is the Phthalo Turquoise, that maintain color even after dropping some water on it in the ends, because we had the wash going on. This was the Imperial Purple, and that actually did a good job. I like the undertones of the pink in the Imperial Purple. That looks really cool. As the salt's drying here now, in this last few minutes, just while I was explaining here, I noticed that some of the salt is now starting to develop. So it took all that time. It hasn't started here really that much because this is still pretty wet. Like, I can still pull off color. But in this area, I'm kind of seeing some. So it is in that very last bit, that last 5 minutes where it completely starts to dry, that you start to see what the effects are going to show. And like, you're seeing them literally right now. It's starting to see these little white structures there. They're going to turn out like this. So this was one that I did a while ago, and it didn't look anything like that until I put the salt on, and then it just dried. Like in the last few minutes, it gave me these really, really nice little textures. And as you can see here, this is starting to happen with those little pieces of salt. They're just, I guess they take a while to dissolve. And then as they dissolve and it dries, bam, it just, that last little bit of time just cuts the color. Look, we even have just a little bit more. You see that? It's really neat. So salt, that's what I can teach you in this lesson. Something we learned. If you stuck around this long, you just learned that in the last 5 minutes of drying time makes a world of difference in this. And just before my eyes right now, I'm seeing a huge dry shift right here in the Phthalo Turquoise. So that brightness is calming right down and just getting really, really soft, which is really interesting, meaning that one little bit isn't really going to get everything we need. Although this stayed pretty bright and this stayed pretty bright. But the Phthalo Turquoise, as bright as that was, it could use a glaze, So like literally I would want to take more color and do a glaze And you can see how dramatically different that is. So a glaze would definitely, we'll let that dry, benefit from it. And then with the Quin Rose, yeah, it can actually get darker, but not too much. I mean, it's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. And then the ultramarine, not bad, but it could have been a lot darker. So you can see the dry shift in that one. And let's just grab the Imperial Purple since we're here. Huge dry shift there. I mean, that just goes to nothing, right? So in order to get the colors that you originally paint with, you would have to do a few glazes because they just dry shift right out. They go really, really light. This is turning out gorgeous though. I love this combination. This is really pretty. Okay, so that's my video for today. Thanks for sticking around. Sorry if it took a little long, but you know, the dry shift is worth waiting for because it's so interesting and you learn so much about your colors. So go try, and if you're having a little bit of a painter's block, just start here and then go review your cards. It's going to be really fun to look through them later and come up with new ideas just based on these things. If you want to see another one of these videos, let me know. I have a lot of ideas. And don't forget to come and sign up for my Sketchbook Watercolor for Beginners class. I'll see you soon.